We all ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to call this meeting to order and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Terry Williams. Everybody will stand.
If you would stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Moving right along, Mr. Bilbro must be running late, so Ms. ECP is going to read our mission statement.
Beaufort County School will provide quality educational programs and service to ensure students' academic and recurrent success. Thank you.
Do we have any public comments, Ms. Duke? All right. We're going to go on to 2.1, the approval of the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at their agenda? Since this morning, you might want to refresh if you haven't looked at it this earlier. All right, Ms. Booth?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So moved.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Now we've got approval of our minutes from our March 25th and our April 2nd meeting. Is there anybody here tonight that wasn't here that needs to recuse themselves from one of those meetings? All right. Then I'm going to look for a motion.
I wasn't here on March 25th.
March 25th.
Yeah.
Move approval.
All right. We got a motion to approve the minutes from Mr. Oliver. Do I hear a second?
Oh, second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Now we're going to move on to the reason most of you are here, which is the Character Education Award. And we're going to turn that over. Our board member will be Mr. Mac Hodges and Ms. Nicole Howard-Spencer. We will get us started on that.
Good evening. The character trait that was recognized in our schools for the month of April was good judgment. The nominees at the elementary level were from Bath Elementary, Marley Baker; from Chocowinity Middle, Anna Lynn Silverthorne; from Chocowinity Primary, Riley Seymour; from Eastern Elementary, Samuel Garrett; from John Cotton Taylor, Isabella Ebbison; and from S.W. Snowden, Lashia Tyre. And the winner at the elementary level was Samuel Garrett. He is not well this afternoon, so we'll ask his teacher to come forward, Ms. Roxanne Beeman. Samuel is a first grader at Eastern Elementary. His parents are Beverly and Eric Hodges, and he was nominated again by his teacher, Ms. Roxanne Beeman. And Ms. Beeman wrote, "In order to use good judgment, a person must be able to weigh their options and make the best choice for the good of himself and others." Samuel Garrett is an amazing first grader. He is so very smart, and he has such a great sense of humor. During his first grade year, he struggled to make good choices at times, as have many first graders. After all, these first graders have only been on our great earth for 7 years. We as adults struggle with our judgment at times, and this is a learning process for these young children. We learn the most from mistakes that we make, and this goes along with learning how to use our good judgment in various situations. I have been very proud of Samuel because I've watched him make mistakes and then use his good judgment to make a better, smarter choice based on the lessons he has learned. One example is the day that we had lined up to leave our classroom. I looked up and Samuel was getting out of line. I asked him what was going on. His response was, "I'm going to the end of the line because I was beside the friend that I have been having trouble with, and you said that I should move if we get together in line." I told him he had made a smart choice and used his good judgment. Another day, I had paired him with a partner in literacy stations. He came up to me and told me that he thought I needed to change his partner because he might not get his work done. It is so rewarding to see children start to use strategies that we have given them to help them make smart choices. Samuel Garrett is going to do great things in life. My hope is that he will continue to weigh his options carefully and use his good judgment to make the choices that will take him far in life. We say congratulations to Samuel Garrett.
Thank you. Congratulations.
mixed up now. At the middle school level, the nominees were from Bath. Is it Samuel? No? Okay. At the middle school level, the nominees were from Bath Elementary, Chris Modlin. From Chocowinity Middle, Kahmani White. From P.S. Jones, Heidi Beltran Mendoza. And from S.W. Snowden, Lewis Adams. And the winner from Chocowinity Middle is Kahmani White, if he will come forward. Kahmani is a 7th grader at CMS. His mother is Miss Jacqueline White, if she will stand. And he was presented by, he was actually nominated twice by his teacher, by Mrs. Witchett and Mr. Allagood. If they are here, if they will stand. Mrs. Witchett wrote, I would like to nominate Kahmani White for the character trait of good judgment. Kahmani is not currently my student. However, he and I have a good relationship, and he confided in me that he would like some guidance to a problem that he was facing. First, Kahmani wanted to know how to help a friend who was unmotivated to become a better student. This friend did not have good study habits, and he wanted to help him make better grades. Second, Kahmani wanted to know how to be a better leader in his classroom. He wanted to encourage his classmates to focus and get the most out of their education. I was so impacted by his good judgment for a 7th grader that I knew he was the best example of this month's character trait. And Mr. Allagood wrote, I would like to nominate Kahmani White for exhibiting the character trait of good judgment for April. Kahmani has been an outstanding role model for all of his peers this whole school year. He has no referrals or incidents from my class. He is always trying to help others help others act the way they should in the classroom. He will tell them that they should not be doing whatever behavior it is that they are doing. He is also a class representative in the Student Government Association who has good suggestions for the organization. He has shown good judgment to me in each of these examples. In one instance, he was sitting away from his peers in the cafeteria. I asked him why he was not sitting with his class. He told me that the group was doing and saying things that they should not. That showed me his maturity and good judgment to remove himself from a bad situation. I am proud to nominate Kahmani White for good judgment. We say congratulations.
And we need you now to go by and speak each board member.
Congratulations on your good judgment. Congratulations.
Great job.
I'm very proud of you, sir.
Great job. Continue using good judgment.
Absolutely. Keep it up.
Congratulations. At the high school level, the nominees were from the Early College High School, Jaleesa Quintana Marino, from Northside High School, Jada Woolard, and from Washington High School, David Gomez. And the winner at the high school level was David Gomez from Washington High School, if he would come forward. David is a 10th grader at Washington High School. His parents are Juan Gomez and Elena Dominguez, if they are here, if they will stand. And he was presented by the assistant principal, Miss Melissa Harris. And she wrote, I was able to experience one of the most meaningful sights in my career due to the character of one of our students. Yesterday, without prompting and only in front of other students, David Gomez literally removed his shoes off his feet and gave them to another student who had outgrown his own, and his feet were coming out of them. The story only gets better. Another student made us aware of the boy's kindness, recognized his good character, and wanted us to know about it. They also took it upon themselves to bring 2 more pairs of shoes and new shirts for the child. I can unequivocally say that we have the most thoughtful and compassionate kids. When you hear stories of kids that are not on the right track or trouble, please know that they are an infinitely small number and that these children embody what is right with our children. I, his classmates, and my professional peers feel that David is deserving of recognition and are proud of his actions. We say congratulations to David Gomez.
I need you to go by and speak to the board member. All right.
Great job. Keep it up, David. Incredibly much. I believe every word that was said
That's a
about
whole
it.
lot more than a lot of the girls have said. Absolutely. You got some new shoes on.
So these are the make you feel good.
You better stand behind it, they can make you look good, man.
Also, this young man here wants to recognize his father for all of his hard work in raising him.
So nice.
The future's not all lost.
All right. Next, we have the North Carolina Farm to School Art Contest winners. And if Miss Gwyn Roberson-McBride will come up, Mac, you stay right where you are and help with that.
Do exactly what Will's telling you.
Thank you for having me this evening. Every year, North Carolina Department of Agriculture has an art contest, and they produce a farm-to-school calendar. I'm just going to pass it around for you to see. It's published and given out statewide. If you're lucky, you get a copy. Miss Bryn with Northeast Elementary School submitted several of her students' art, and the theme was North Carolina agriculture, of course, and it had to be crops, livestock, or other agriculture that North Carolina grows. We had 3 students recognized this year. We had honorable mention Maria Mendoza. Would you like for them to come up?
Yes, please.
And
I know I sold this for you, it's hidden.
that's Maria's artwork up on the screen. She
That's
did a great
beautiful.
job. We have finalist Sophia Burnell. Burnell. I knew I was going to get that wrong. Burnell. And she was a finalist.
We're gonna keep this. Here, I'll hold that for you. You just.
And we also have a winner, Easton Speaks, and his artwork is going to be represented in the calendar next year. We find out what month he will be May 17th.
There's your people. I'll leave this to you, Mom. Well, you did.
Also tonight we have with us our cafeteria manager at Northeast, Angela Logan, our assistant principal, Miss Faircloth, and our teacher, our art teacher, Miss Bryn, who will also receive $500 in support of her art class for art supplies. And this is with our USDA Farm to School grant.
No, they don't let me touch you.
If you want to come around.
Now, if you all will come to the middle, we'll get a photo op.
Hey, don't do about speaking to the board.
Yes, please.
Keep drawing. Great job. Congratulations. Keep drawing. Keep drawing.
Great job. I dig the ears.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Teaching.
Oh, good. Thank you. Angela, she's
Congratulations.
You guys have a lot of talent.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, young man.
Good job. Good job.
Congratulations. A lot of talent.
Good job. Good job.
Once again, a big congratulations to all of our winners with Character Ed, as well as with our North Carolina Farm to School Art. This is the point of the meeting where, as much as I know you all would love to stay, we will very graciously allow you to take a few minutes, and if you have things you need to do and go home and all those good things. I want to once again thank you. It is with the support of the parents and the teachers and the principals and the assistant principals and the community that your children are up here getting these awards, and we would be lost if you weren't there to support them. So thank you so much, and I hope you all have a good evening. You are more than welcome to stay, but at this point, if you'd like to do something a little more fun, you're welcome to. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. There they go. And they're off.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations again, young man. Thank you, sir. Have a good evening. Have a good evening.
Good night.
I'm glad you told you. I didn't know what you.
Well, that certainly cleared the room.
And then there was
But I do appreciate them all coming, and Gwyn, thank you for what you do. That's great to have those winners there. We're now under number 5. This is no action, and first up will be high school math books. The executive director for instructional services, Miss Andrea Lilley, and the math instructional coach, Emily Myers. Who's going to talk?
I'm going to
Andrea.
start.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Emily has been working hard with all the teachers in high school math and middle school math 1, the EOC that we have for that, as well as math 2 and math 3, to rework some of the pacing guides and things because of the standards that have changed. And so along with that, we know that our teachers have not had textbooks for quite some time in math. And so Emily and the teachers looked to try to find something that would match the new framework, the new standards, and she did end up finding a textbook. Actually, it's a workbook for Math 1, Math 2, and Math 3. And we have several teachers and schools who would like to try this as a pilot at the schools. And so these would be consumable student workbooks. They would have a teacher resource book for each unit. They have a digital access for teachers as well. Throughout this pilot, we would be progress monitoring to make sure that the teachers are getting what they need, as well as we're gaining a lot of information on if these workbooks, is actually working for our students. And those who were interested in the pilot was Washington High School, Northside High School, Southside High School, Ed Tech, P.S. Jones, Northeast, and Bath. This would be a reoccurring cost if this, came to fruition. And so right now we're looking at approximately $23,000 for those pilot schools. And we're just asking that you consider this, and we'll come back to you, with approval later. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer those for you.
Is there any questions tonight, or can we ask questions tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will add, Bath Elementary signed on today, so I know what's on your Word docs may not show Bath Elementary, but we did print out a copy for you, so you can have where Bath is included.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's your information.
Go ahead.
Looks like, well, I handed you the wrong thing here. Looks like all of the middle and high schools except for Chocowinity Middle. Is that?
Yes. And Snowden.
I see SHS. I thought.
And Early College.
A reason why they're not interested in participating, or?
Those schools felt like they already either had the resources that they needed, or they wanted to wait and see how it went for others.
Okay.
So, for example, Southside High School has 2 teachers piloting it, but they're only going to pilot it in their Math 3 class. So they decided to pick one area to focus on for the pilot instead of doing it for all of their courses.
Okay. Go ahead.
This is a financial question. I know each of the schools have a fund balance that they could utilize. Seeing this is a pilot, we don't have 100% buy-in. We actually don't have 100% buy-in at each level of math. Are they willing to take that cost on for the pilot? If it's successful, we could come back and address it as an ongoing occurrence price.
I think that's
Follow what I'm saying?
I did, and I think that's something that we can look into and have an answer at the next board meeting for you.
Okay.
Definitely.
I mean, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I understand.
And my question really, it ties into Terry's. I know that we have textbook money and all that kind of stuff. However, like you said, Ms. Myers, this is just a small snapshot of the number of math classes offered. So if the pilot, we're going to say it's going to be successful, but we don't know. If it's not, then this would not be a recurring cost, because we would see at the end of, this is going to go into next year. But if it is successful, do we have any kind of number out there that we would be looking at if we implemented it across the system? What does this end up, let me rephrase this. At $23,000, because that includes bath.
Yes.
How much are you really paying per student for that? How many
It works out
students?
to about $23 per student.
And does this program, Walsh, is that how does that have the ability to go across the math curriculum? Or is it very specific?
Currently, right now, it is only Math 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
That's all that they currently.
It doesn't handle any other, and I'm so out of the math loop. Math 1, 2, and 3, educate me. That's not algebra?
Okay.
Or does algebra fall somewhere in those maths?
Algebra 1 is the old Math 1. So
Okay.
when we changed to Common Core, North Carolina went and did Math 1, Math 2, Math 3. So
Okay.
it would have been the old Algebra 1 geometry, Algebra 2. The 4th level math isn't included in this, because the 4th level math, we're getting ready to see a standards revision that's going to be coming up. So we didn't want to purchase something when those standards are going to
And how married would we be to this if there was a huge revision in the math curriculum across the state? Is this a 5-year commitment, a 2-year commitment, or is it year to year? Year to year, because since they're consumables. Okay. And, because I'm still hearing in Raleigh, there's a big push. There's still a lot of legislators that want to eliminate Common Core, but until they have something better or different to put in its place, doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
And with our latest revisions of Math 1, 2, and 3, they're no longer calling it Common Core.
Right.
It's our North Carolina Standard Course of Study is how they relabeled our standards for
Right,
those.
and it's just jargon. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same. They just knew they needed to get rid of those 2 words so that people would quit going ballistic. It's still Common Core.
Lipstick on a pig.
Dash, lipstick on a pig. Okay, does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah,
Butch?
I mean, you're basing this on, you're saying it's estimated about 1,000 students impacted. What is our total number, if it did do 100% rollout, what are we looking total number it would be in? I mean, it's not the whole school.
Did you say 23? What'd you say per person?
It works out to about 23
Okay.
per student.
Can I pause you?
I'm saying what number of students we're looking at that would impact?
About 1,000.
1,500, 200? I mean,
If you did a total rollout?
yeah, total rollout.
If the pilot is successful and we implement it across the board.
About 2,000?
3/4 of the population is in to take 3 maths.
But
not each
I would have
year.
to look at the numbers to know.
Yeah,
how
we'll have to
total.
look at it.
Okay.
Back to you.
Okay, and we're not, all they're doing is an FYI tonight, right? Are there any other questions? Thank you. If you have questions, I'm sure you can email Andrea or Emily so that
We'll have it ready.
you could, so you could be prepared and not get caught off guard. But thank you. I know a lot of work, went into coming up with this. I'm sure you studied. Oh, I did have one more question. Will there be teacher training before the rollout?
Yes, so at the bottom of the paper, I put our timeline.
Okay.
So you can see, I actually started working on this 2017-2018 school year is when we started. And then we kind of, in December 13th, we kind of picked, this was the resource teachers wanted to pursue. And then by June, once it's approved that this is where we're going to go, we would begin with the training for our teachers.
So they would be training over the summer on their time?
We would train at the end of school.
While they're still here? While they're still, you have to, okay. All right. I don't want to put something on them where I'm requiring them if they're going to, oh, by the way, we need you to train all summer.
And all of these teachers who have signed up for the pilot have been at the meetings. They have looked at the resources. They have said, yes, I want to do this.
Great. That's very important. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now to stay within that department, America's Farmer Grow STEM Education Grant Secondary Curriculum Director, Miss Ashley Padgett.
Good afternoon, evening. How are you guys? And
right.
this is really it's about a grant, and I'm asking permission, and I'm going to give you a copy. And I apologize for this not being on board doc.
It's actually no action. This is
It's
for
no
information.
action, just kind of
This is for information.
Right.
So we were nominated by a farmer in Beaufort County for the Beaufort County School America's Farm STEM Grant. And we can, as a county, write a grant for $10,000 or $25,000. A little history, last year, K through 8 science teachers came back on a Friday and Saturday and were trained by STEM East and working with science kits. The teachers that went loved it. They wanted more kits. They wanted more research-based kits. So with this grant, one of the options is to write for science kits. We are looking at Amplify if we were to get the kit because it is the only science kit that has the research backing behind it. That in what the research is it gets kids excited about engineering, math, science, and ELA. Each unit has a strong engineering focus. Within that that engineering focus, you talk, read, write, think, and argue like engineers. It is partially hands-on and partially blended. And the good thing about the blended, the computer piece, it is agnostic. It does not matter what kind of system or computer that you use for the curriculum. There are pre and post tests, hands-on activities, and each unit has between 9 to 16 lesson days. And with those days, the ending piece, the post-assessment, is actually a seminar where you prove what you've learned. And then you have a writing task where you take a similar problem and you try to solve it in that writing task. One of the other kits we would get would be something called an engineering intern, where you are pretending to be an intern for an imaginary company, and you're given, after having a skill set created, you're given a new problem based on the standards, and you have to solve it. Now, these are based on next generation science standards, which are not completely complementary to North Carolina science standards, so we would, even with this grant, even if it could pay for all the kits, we would never purchase them all because they are not a direct match with North Carolina. So with teachers, if we were able to receive the grant, teachers would help us pick out the appropriate standards. This is one of those, it would be a quick turnaround if we did receive the grant. It's a one-year grant. We would spend $7,000 on the actual PD. There's PD during the summer, and there's also coaching PD. There's virtual PD. We would save about $2,500 for stipends. We would spend $13,000-ish for the kits and about $600 for consumables. There's not a lot of consumables. Kits would be shared with our Destiny catalog, like we share some of our other materials from school to school. But if there are 2 science teachers or 3 science teachers at that school, they would have the same kits, so they could plan and work together.
So this is just an informational.
Correct. But it would be a quick turnaround, but it would include a lot of professional development, teacher support. They would get 2-day training. Again, the teachers would work on which kits to purchase. Again, most of these teachers, a large portion of these teachers had training that was similar last year. But it also includes coaching, very detailed lesson plans, digital teaching guides. There's also video support. That's one of the tips. And of course,
Define quick turnaround.
quick would be quick. Like the grant we would get in August, and it would be for next school year.
For 2019, 2020.
Yeah. So quick is quick. The kits would be ours. We would own them forever, except for the consumables. So the consumables are very minute, like cotton balls and toothpicks. It's not massive amounts of cost afterwards. So the gift would be, they would be ours forever.
And the commitment back to this grant operation, as Ms. Padgett said, is only 1 year. So once the grant runs out, then that partnership is completed. So there's no long-term payback to it.
Okay.
And of course, if we like it, we would love to push forward and do more. If we don't, again, it's like a pilot that's funded by a grant.
And when's your deadline for submitting it?
And I'm sorry.
What?
It's today.
Oh, well then why is this under no action?
No, I'm sorry.
Well, in short, being the new guy, I wasn't sure if we had a true policy that we had to vote on grants, and recognizing the small amount and that it's educational, I felt as though it should have no action. But if you would like to have action on it, feel free.
And that is on me. That's that statement. Not bringing that to you earlier.
Correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but usually Mark has always told us about grants and just, it's kind of a FYI, but
It's just
we
enough
do.
information. We've not have to vote on them.
No, that's what I'm saying. It was a
So,
FYI. Some of the bigger ones were asked to vote on, not one this size, but the bigger ones. Or if there was a commitment on our part that we had to matching funds, those we have to vote on. Okay.
Other than us moving things around.
Does this affect all of our 4th through 8th graders?
Leave it alone.
The 4th graders, I put the numbers of all the 4th graders on the 4th grade teachers, but this would be something a 4th grade teacher was not comfortable with, we would not have.
But I mean, it affects all of our schools that have 5th through 8th grade.
It could be 4th through 8th grade is where it is.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here just to read it in
Right.
2 minutes.
Right,
And
yeah.
that is on me.
That's fine. I have no problem with it.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions so that Ashley can proceed? So there's no financial commitment on our end,
There's no financial.
other than like
Zero
toothpicks or
line for
cotton.
us.
None.
And if a teacher who was like, if a teacher was uncomfortable doing it, that would not be something that they would.
It's not going to be required of them, but it would be optional for them to do. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Get that paperwork in. We're going to move 5.3 down to the bottom. So let's keep going. We're now at 5.4, the 2019-20 calendar. Mr. Cheeseman,
All right.
you've got an attachment there.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, you should see the attachment for the proposed calendar and also one for the early college. Just to give you an idea, for the Beaufort County Schools proposed calendar, not the early college, we had about 25 to 30 members from our schools to join here in this conference room twice over the last 30 days. So this calendar represents the draft that the employees directly had put together. We had originally asked for, draft A and draft B, so we could really collaborate over the district, but the 25 to 30 members who came back were all pretty much on point. And so those were teachers, counselors, TAs, a variance of employees across the district. So with that, it highlights the 12 holidays that are a must, the 9 workday requirements. There are 7 optional work days here, of course your 10 annual leave days, and 5 early release where we would look to actually have a mix of professional development and site-based development from your principals. But also please note there are some strategic timelines. For example, if you notice in October, on October 31st, which is Halloween, I know an awful lot of children partake in that. The very next day, we put in a professional day, so we could actually have PD on that day. And then also, we did the same thing in March on the 26th and 27th, where we have an early release, but also a professional day for our employees the next day in terms of their own learning. This also features, believe it or not, 3 weekends in December through January before they come back on January 6th, just the way the calendar falls. But specifically, we're going to hold this for a couple weeks and allow community feedback. We'll put it up on our website and specifically ask community to look at it. In terms of the early college, this is very similar to previous year. Principal Emily Paik worked with constituents on her side to come up with this calendar, which does include 3 satellite days there, and specifically those would also potentially be used for PD for teachers. Any questions, comments, concerns?
No questions?
I have talked with a few people, and they have mentioned the possibility of moving maybe 1 or 2, at least 1 or 2 optional work days at the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So it just seemed like there was so many days at the beginning, and that they would like to have another day at the end.
You know, what was really interesting about that is the original calendar in August had the 19th through the 23rd as professional work days, and we did have an additional optional work day on the 9th of June.
Mm-hmm.
But the committee of 25 to 30 specifically asked me to flip what you just stated. And so the committee actually put back that green day on the 25th of August and flipped it for a blue day in June. So that's something, we get a fair amount of feedback from our employees across the district, and as a whole, as a majority, they want to flip that. I don't see an issue.
Yeah.
But for now, this is going to the schools for them to discuss and vote, or we're deciding tonight?
No, you're not deciding tonight. This is just for your knowledge.
No action.
And at the next board meeting at the beginning
That's
of
right, we're
May,
still under
you'll have
no
action. But we're going to post it up anywhere and everywhere for our community to comment on it also.
Okay, yes, I forgot we were still in no action.
No.
And I want to thank all the community members and faculty members that were part of the committee. I know it's a lot of work. I've had to do it before myself. It's a lot of thought that goes in it and a lot of input. All right, any other questions on this? We're going to keep moving. The Southern Regional Educational Board update.
Yes, so at our last meeting, the board asked if we could substitute out Early College High School and substitute in Southside High School. And Ms. Johnson with Ms. Lilley and their regional board agreed to that. So in short, that substitution has been made. So considering, we'll go ahead and put the MOU together, and I'll share that with you at the next board meeting. But those 4 schools will be ready for that. So Early College knows they're stepping out, and Southside knows they're stepping in. All right.
Okay, great. I'll continue on, 5.6, the Golden Leaf STEM Grant.
Excellent. So I spoke with Jason Rochelle today by telephone, and a member of his team named Marilyn. My apologies, her last name escapes me. But today we talked about having the opportunity to tweak the original grant plan, and Golden Leaf was excited about that. So in short, they essentially stopped the clock, allowed us to delay, and meaning that they really want us to be able to work through this grant, and they want to work with us. So I met with principals today, and I know that we were looking at Ed Tech as a facility of one central location. However, I presented a plan just in rough draft format to Golden Leaf about actually taking it away from one site where you have to do almost $1 million of renovation and going back to the 3 individual high schools and building academies at the high schools, so your teachers and your students would no longer have to travel. They could take advantage of a 4-period day instead of a 2-period day. They could run more than one academy at one location. And instead of using $1.1 million for renovation, we would update our project management request, flip that money from complete renovations into resources and equipment to actually go state-of-the-art in 3 of those schools and 2 academies each. For example, just as an example in this conversation, Northside High School could run a state-of-the-art welding program. So instead of using, say, $400,000 earmarked for renovation at the Ed Tech Center, you might be able to use that money for that welding program specifically at that school. So it's just a draft proposal right now, but Golden Leaf has given us the green light to go ahead and develop a matrix of what the grant says, and then a column next to it in terms of the change we'd like to make, the fiscal impact, and then the influence and impact it would have on students. the timeline I offered Golden Leaf was this summer that we would sit and work with business leaders directly, meaning whatever academy you have at Washington High School, your business leaders will come to the table to still talk about the original needs there. And then in this fall, if Golden Leaf approves it, then we would develop a new timeline as a board for implementation, so your voices would be heard with our business leaders and community members as to what high school would host which academies. So I'm excited about it, and then finally we asked them to restart the clock January 1st of 2020, which 35 days later you would have to put in your project management plan with an implementation target date of August of 2020. And so that's just a general idea. So therefore, we could honor the grant should you approve it once a new plan is put in place. So this no longer is a rush. All right. So, and the other part of that is that this new idea still maintains the original focus of the STEM grant, still maintains the original focus of working with our business partners, still maintains teaching students skill sets and trades for our community, but does it at 3 different locations that our principals support right now. No teachers would have to travel, no students would have to travel, and it would be a cost savings because we would not have to ask our county commissioners for any additional money. And so within that, we have a plan in writing, and I look forward to talking with Golden Leaf tomorrow to set up a time where we can get back together and plan accordingly. But it looks like we're in a better place right now. Good. Sounds great.
Thank you for your work on that. That sounds a lot more appealing, and if it allows us to offer our students so much more at their home schools, I mean, that's why we're doing it. That's why we're doing it. Anybody have any questions or discussions? I'm sure Mr. Cheesman would be bringing a lot more back to us.
I guess in that matter, if a student, say at Southside, we'll use Weldon as an example. You create the welding facility at Northside, and a student at Southside really wants to be a welder. Are they going to go to Northside to do that, or are we going to?
No, so what we're going to actually do, it's a great question, and Golden Leaf and I talked about it today. Essentially, after working with business partners and the board, you might actually duplicate programs at multiple schools. So you could have, in theory, welding at 3 different schools, or just at 2 schools. But that's why we need to survey our students to see what their interests are, so we can prepare accordingly ahead of time. That's why we need to survey our community and our business partners. But to answer your question is, if, say, 15 students, just as an example, if 15 students at Southside wanted welding, well, then there's a means for building a welding program there, even if there was one at Northside.
Right.
So, but if you're flipping the money to actually do more equipment and resource allocations versus renovating the Ed Tech Center, you should have enough money to actually do both. And if the county really wanted to see certain programs at each individual school, and they see that we've put forth a good faith effort, then maybe we would have other support there.
Any other questions? We're going to keep going, then come back to you, Willie Mack. We're at the P.S. Jones Memorial Park update.
Awesome. So I want to thank Ms. Booth for taking the lead on this. And Ms. Booth and I met last week with some of our city officials, including the city manager, Attorney Franz, Christy Roberson. We had conversation about the agreement with the park, and just to have dialogue and an understanding of what the process of renting out that space looks like to our community. And so in short, we talked specifically about the user agreement between the Board of Education and the city. And in that moment, we're going to suggest to you, for your thinking over the next couple of weeks and come back in May, to allow the city to actually reserve any type of rental, meaning that they would take ownership of that. If it's a non-school function, then any monies earned from that, then the city would gather that money. If it's a school function, even though they're renting out the space, that money would come back towards us. But they had several questions that we need to work through together, and we'll bring that proposal to you in May. But as an example, they would like agreement on what kind of equipment's allowed on the property, meaning do we allow for tents, do we allow for stages, amusement park settings, cookers, etc. Other question, does the board require certificates of insurance for vendors or certain activities? So the city wants to make sure that they're in alignment to your thinking. Also, to alignment of your thinking, would the city be allowed to actually host any type of rental opportunities that would allow alcohol on the property after school hours? And then, of course, are there designated driving areas inside the park, meaning for trucks that come in and out to set up tents and cookers and stages? So there's some things that our team has to put together for your consideration for May, but this is the first time just coming back so you have knowledge so you can talk about it if you like. But in short, Ms. Booth did a really nice job representing the board with the city, so kudos to you. But right now, the city just wants to make sure that they have a defined process for asking us specifically about rental agreements. And what we're really looking at is just so we don't have to rewrite the MOU, is that when the city is approached for that space, then they'll send a question to us asking for a rental agreement that day. And then if we approve through my office or designate you appoint, then they'll go ahead and process the rental agreement. If we say no, we've already scheduled that date, then they won't. So, nice job, Ms. Booth. Any questions? Awesome. So, next meeting, we'll have something in concrete for you to consider.
Thank you, Ms. Booth. I know you've been working on trying to get some things squared away there, so I really appreciate it. And then the last thing before we come back to Mr. Carolyn is the 2019 spring policy updates, and you have some attachments.
You have a lot of attachments.
Yes.
All right. So the School Board Association does a very nice job. You pay into this already, of keeping us updated in terms of changes that are happening across the state. So this is a first read for you. Essentially 30 days from now, you'll come back and get to vote on those. So this is standard operating procedure, I believe, although this is my first time with you. But in short, should you look over this over the next few weeks, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. But this is your opportunity for first read to take a look at those. And we'll come back in May.
And I would advise, there are a lot of paragraphs in red, which make sure that you at least take the time to go over those sections, and if you have any questions, write them out so we can answer those. But it is quite a big read. All right, now we will go back up to the 2019-2020 local current expense budget. Executive Director, Mr. Willie Matt Carolyn.
You want to give an intro while we hand out the books?
Sure, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce. No, actually, let me say it this way. Very similar to how we put the entire budget in front of you, or the entire needs list for capital. Sure, we can.
She already gave it to us last meeting. All we got to do is
Yeah, this
approve it and let it go.
procurement.
Yeah.
Okay.
While he's handing this out.
While we are going to let Ms. McBride, we're going to jump ahead for just a minute because we'll be on this for a while. Under the action plan, we've got the school nutrition program, the procurement plan. Ms. McBride, you want to take over there, and then you can be done.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you again for having me tonight. On April 2nd, I brought our procurement plan update to you for review. Just briefly, this plan just documents how we are to procure our goods and services. In the body of the document are mostly definitions of different procurement methods that we use. And then on page 19, attachment B, in the first column, you'll see the items that we normally purchase, and then in the rest of the document, it explains what type of procurement process we use and how often we actually bid or request for proposal for these different food supplies and services. Last time it was for review, so I didn't know if you had any questions tonight.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. McBride? So she can.
I move approval.
All right. We have a motion, move approval by Mr. Williams and a second by Ms. P. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carried. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Yes. We'll go ahead, while we're under action, let's go ahead and look at the field trips.
Members of the board, there are 3 field trips for your consideration, one with Northeast Elementary School, 2 with Southside High School. Northeast looking to go to Cedar Rock Park in Burlington in May. Southside, the same, both for the Envirothon competition. And Southside High School would also their Distinguished Men in Purpose college visit to Greenville, South Carolina on April 24th. Any questions?
They got enough chaperones, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a vote for approval by Mac, second.
Question, it doesn't say how the distinguished men of purpose will be traveling. I'm assuming
So
personal vehicle.
Possible. Right now, I've asked them to secure their transportation because this advisor thought as though we could take a minivan down there, but I just wanted to check insurances because we're going out of state.
Okay.
So if you approve it, you could always approve a tentative, transportation. But right now, I do believe it's a personal vehicle.
Okay.
It's not a bus. It's not an activity bus.
Okay, so we'll move approval, and if it's all right with the board, then we'll let him, once they submit that to him, if it's okay with him, we'll carry through on that. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, now we'll go back to
All right, my turn again. All right, so let's start. So very similar to the capital outlay list of wanting to share all of the $7 million capital needs, I wanted to put the truth in front of you of where we are right now. And so I've asked Lilley, Mac, Carolyn to just put it all there. And he's going to share some thinking to this. This is before any edits are coming through. This is before any type of reductions are coming through. This is before any type of plan that we may have in place that we can talk through right now. But right now, it's close to $2 million above where we need to be, although we do have some thinking as to how to get that down. But with that, I would like to say that the Finance Department has done an amazing job, tedious job. This is much different in terms of its presentation that you've had in the past, but we want to be very transparent in terms of what school finance looks like right now. And again, this is the opening meeting over the next few meetings that you'd like to have in order to cut this down. But here's your starting point. So with that.
Thanks, sir. Essentially, if you'll look at your tab 1, it will give you a table of contents of where you can find different information. We have under tab 2, we've given you an outline of how the budget process was designed to work. It gives you an understanding of the different segments within the account code, the first digit being our funds, which would be state, federal, local, capital outlay, child nutrition, thank you very much, schools, grants, and then the after-school programs. The next group of numbers of 4 digits called a purpose, and that's where you would find an administrator, usually falls within the 64, 61 hundreds. Classroom teachers, you're going to find it in 5110. This year they broke out PE and music into their own purpose codes this year, so you'll see a little bit of deviation on their codes this year as well. The PRCs, we've also listed for you all the different PRCs that we currently use and their descriptions. That's the next 3 digits that you find within our account code. The object code is basically, what are you doing? It's a teacher, it's a child nutrition worker. Those object codes are also listed, I believe. No, we did not include them, did they? They're in the description of the code itself in your printouts. The next item is your school code, the various sites that we have. The last 2 digits are basically can be manipulated any way that a local LEA needs to track or separate expenditures. So you'll see some deviations in those. For the most part, the last 2, the category, we're using for our director codes. And we've had some issues in the past where not all of our directors have had the identifier put on the end of all their account codes that they're responsible for. This budget process, we're going through and identifying those to help to eliminate that in the future. So that basically gives you an overview of tab number 2. Tab 3 is your state programs, and There again, state budgets, the planning allotments really haven't even come down good for us. So basically, I took our current allotments due to enrollment cuts, whatever the legislators want to do. These numbers will change, and that will, of course, cause us to do some shifting. The other thing is that we have utilized every dollar, position, or month of employment that we have to try to maximize your dollars. And in doing so, we have moved as many of the higher paid teachers into your positions allotments, and we've tried to put your lower dollars teachers in our lower. And when I say a lower dollar, I mean your starting teacher at a $35,000 salary as opposed to a $55,000 salary. So when you look at that, we have gone into your local current expense budget, and this budget will change tremendously based on those teachers, the ones that will leave us, the ones that we will get to replace them, and where I may have a local teacher listed here because she's an A4. We may be fortunate enough to get some with a master's who's a 10, and at that case, I would move them over into a state allotment and try to bring a lower paid teacher back over to the local. They're going to minimize and maximizing our local dollars. Okay? In this budget, different finance officers across the region used varying rates. I took a flat 3% increase because they're talking about an average of 5 for teachers and 2 for other state employees. With that being said, we have about 500 teachers, so that's a big bulk. So even with a 3, the state PRCs that are in here and budgeted, the 01 allotments, I know that they're going to give an increase of whatever it was, so I went ahead and upped that allotment to accommodate those increases. I also tried to put the current salaries of our staff in the requested column, and under the recommended, I applied those increases of a 3%. Our retirement rate is increasing from 18.86 to 19.57. And then our health insurance will go from 6101 to 6350. Keep in mind, we are a state agency. If the state mandates those benefits and salaries, we have to come up with them. And in the past couple of years, when we've made our proposals to the county, we have not gotten that additional funding for those costs. So I think we had about $400,000 in those costs built into last year's budget. The other thing that you'll know when we get into the local discussion, in the past, we have tried to budget off of operating expenditures rather than true position budgeting. So let's say that we have 10 teachers vacancies that may come open in a year. And talking with Mr. Doan, it may be 4 to 6 weeks before we fill that position. That lap salary, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard Mark and Dr. Phipps talk about lap salary. That lap salary allowed us to pay for another teacher or 2 teacher assistants. It gets a little iffy in that when we sign contracts and we provide the pre-audit statement, it's based on the position, not a part of whether they're going to be here or not. So we need to fund or budget those positions as that we are setting the entire monies aside for the position. And we haven't truly done that based on an operational budget. Okay? So if we go into tab...
I'm sorry.
You want me to get some candy?
I need to step out for a quick second. No, keep going. Okay. You can tell me what.
Tab 4 will give you a breakdown of the expenditures that we're anticipating. As Mr. Cheeseman said, it's about a $1.9 million increase in the current allotment. You also need to realize that we have budgeted kind of flat on what we call accounts payable expenditures. contract, supplies, materials, gas. And speaking with Mr. Gwyn on Friday, his fuel has gone up 30 cents a gallon over the last couple of billings. So if that comes into effect, those are going to be tremendous impacts going forward. And we have tried to, in any pocket that we can, put some additional monies to cover for those fuel costs. We've put some in there, leftover monies in 69 at the state. We have also put some additional monies in our local 706 money. If you'll look, as you go through...
Question.
Yes, sir.
Are you recommending 300,000 fund balance for this year? Is that what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
It's sitting there now.
Right, but I mean,
It's sitting there
I just want
now.
to make sure he's talking about moving forward. That's not past.
Right.
No, this is, as Mr. Cheeseman said, the uncut version
Yes,
right
this is-
now.
I mean, I understand this is a starting point.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see where we were starting.
Right. Each of your pages are numbered by section. There's the index up front. If you want to find out a particular PRC, you can reference it to make it a little quicker for you. You'll go through. Last year, we didn't really get into budgeting federal programs or some of the other programs. But being that we were trying to do a true head count of all our personnel that are full-time for budgeting purposes, I did include them this year on their current allotments. There again, those allotments probably and will shift during the year, as will our ability to address them by shifting teachers to accommodate the shortfalls and hopefully some increases. So that you will find your federal programs under tab 5. There again, federal programs and state monies are different than our local monies that we can throw across different PRCs. They are allotment driven by PRC, and we have to stay within those allotments in our spending. If you move to Fund tab 6, you will find your capital outlay. This is pretty much the same one that we presented to you at the last meeting, with the exception that when we got into the details on the proposed projects for the upcoming year, there were a couple of items that I misunderstood and what the values were and shifting. So those are highlighted in yellow and red. And I also included a master sheet that shows you which item within that category was changed. So if you'll notice technology, I think in my original one I had it maybe $200,000 or $300,000. It was supposed to be $400,000. So it's noted. Tab 7 is our child nutrition program. This one basically is prepared in part with the child nutrition director. I had an earlier draft where she had made some corrections in it, so there's a fund balance appropriation to balance it. However, in speaking with her this evening, she has made some adjustments, and we will make corrections in that the next time we come before you and are recommended. Okay? And then your last, tab 8 has multiple funds that are very small. Fund 6, we will not budget until we know what the carryovers are for the various schools. Fund 7, we do have 2 schools, Eastern Elementary and John Cotton Taylor, that have personnel in their after-school program. So those are budgeted here for you. And then Fund 8 are the various grants that we received during the year that have personnel assigned to them.
Good job. So that's the beginning. All right. Honestly, that's the beginning.
We, staff and I, Ms. Lewis has been excellent to work with me on proofing me to make sure my formulas were correct. One of the things that we did find is that some of my copying and pasting, moving some personnel for some savings that we had in some of the funds, I may have a duplication error that I need to look at. We're going to be going through every personnel record tomorrow to make sure that the numbers are correct. I want to give a shout out to Miss Cindy Apple. She was great in working with me to make sure I had every head counted and where the classroom was and what the person taught.
So right now, as Willie Mack said, it's about 1.9 million. However, when Mr. Doan and I spoke to you about a month ago, as an example, when you consolidate down 13 positions, just based off of staffing, people leaving, people retiring, and you're looking at your classroom size ratio, those 13 positions would be a cost savings of roughly $650,000. When you look at some of your time-limited positions, that each year people receive a letter in January, and then they conclude their employment in June. Well, there's about 9 or 10 of those positions that we're looking at right now. That would be a cost savings of $325,000. If the Senate and our legislators go back through Senate Bill 329, then we may receive funding back for that. So there's right around $1 million already that we look at that we know that could have impact on this 1.9. But in short, that's what we're going to start doing as a team, is making suggestions. So as you take a look at this budget, and if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to sit with you individually or in teams, whatever it might be. But when we come back to the table next, if you have your thinking, then we can bring some of our thinking to share with you in terms of how we can manipulate this down and not have an impact in the classroom itself.
Questions now?
Sure. How about it?
Well, I mean, 1.8, it looked like $1,888,000.
Yeah.
So I know this is a starting point. You don't have all the details.
Right.
But do you have an idea, how far are you going to try to get that down? I mean,
Well,
I'm not suggesting that you get it down to zero. So what is your thinking about that?
Actually, I'm going to seek guidance from you. I'm going to try to get it down to a reasonable place that does not impact our organization, and then with your blessing, go to the county commissioners and say, this is the increase you're going to need to fund this at, or please fund this at. But in short, I have to have a plan that does not impact the district as a whole and put skeleton crews in places. So, with your guidance, if you don't want me to knock it down at all, I'll leave it as is and take it to the county. Or I think it really comes from what you need it to be.
Okay. No, I'm not saying knock it down any. I mean, whatever the board, I'd like to hear what everybody has to say. But costs, because every year we go through this, but all your costs such as your insurance, your retirement, those are things that I don't think you should worry about being an increase. They should be there. They should be passed on.
Well, I agree with you. And part of it also, it comes to, we've been using $300,000 or just short of $300,000 a year in your fund balance. And in places I've been, boards of education and county commissions often have that struggle of what's the appropriate fund balance that you should have. And in short, at a $1.4 million fund balance where we are right now, that would not be enough money to sustain an entire month if you had a catastrophic event. However, you typically have a good relationship with the county, so they may, in an emergency, help you out. But with that, I think that's really, as a board, where do you want to put your feet into the ground and hold tight of how low do you want that fund balance to go before you spend it out? Because in places I've been, the county commissioners have sometimes asked you for your auditing books to see how far they can take you and then replenish. So it just really depends on where your comfort zone is as a board, but I'll follow your guidance and then get after it.
Well, I think one of the overwhelming questions that I have is is some of these positions that you're talking about where the savings will be, are those currently employed positions that we don't really want to lose, have no choice but losing, have decided to lose? I mean, how are you deciding where those are going to come from?
I'd say all the above, to be honest with you. In some of those 13 positions, some of them are retirements. Some of those are people leaving. Some of those are programs that close out.
And that was my other thing. Is this going to be the elimination of some programs at different schools?
Not necessarily programs itself. In short, it may cause an employee from school A to have to move to school B in order to fill a gap in school B, but in school A, you already have enough teachers in that position. There may be circumstances where you have, say, a specialty class that's being taught, that position, that contract may be ending, so then you can work through Beaufort Community College to actually sustain that program, or you can do it virtually. So just being trying to be thoughtful economically without impacting our students in that regard.
Will you be able to show us those positions before we actually take a vote on it? The reason-
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Once again, these are the same scenarios we go through every year. People leave, we don't rehire, whatever. But let me give you a real world example and see if this would fit into what you're saying. So I have a third grade, I have a school that has 5 third grade classes, and they're averaging 20 students each, and they have 5 fourth grade classes that are averaging 20 each, and a fourth grade teacher makes the decision to leave, so we do not replace her, because she's choosing to leave. We do not replace her, but we anticipate those third grade 100 students moving up. So automatically, the fourth grade classes at that school goes to 25. And once again, we know the numbers are going to get 20, but we go to 25. Is that a situation where you say that's a place we wouldn't replace a teacher?
It's a possibility based off of the health of the rest of the district. So specifically, that's a scenario because of class size laws in third grade, but I understand you're talking about
I'm comparing you to fourth grade.
Sure, but specifically that could happen. Now, to help you understand the process, Mr. Doan, myself, and Miss Lilley, we met with each individual principal 2 Fridays ago and then again last Tuesday to talk through what their staffing allotments would look like, to talk about their class sizes, to talk about their scheduling of programs. So these are not ideas that myself, Willie Mack, or Mr. Doan have done in isolation. This is working with the site-based administration around the healthiness of their actual master schedule. So in short, yes, you will see class size changes. As dramatic as that, I'm not sure. You might see maybe 2 or 3 in that class move up. However, also be mindful, you do have federal dollars such as Title I in some of our schools where principals have the ability to actually make decisions on staffing inside some of their schools. So say, for example, in that case that you just gave me, if the principal wants to use, say, their $125,000 of Title I funding to make sure that there's not a depletion, then he or she can use that money for that position.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah, but you're looking at the totality of the healthiness of the entire district.
Right, but I'm just saying, for me, that would be a position that I wouldn't cut back before I present it to the county managers, to the county commissioners.
Oh, sure, I agree with
that. That would be one that would be left in there if we had to make a cut later, but
Sure.
that wouldn't be one that I would take up front.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
My 2 cents worth,
Sure.
the sooner we can get out of dipping into fund balance every year in the budget, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, you're relying on your savings right now, which is
That's right.
a bit scary.
I thought when it first came up years ago, we were going to do it one time and that was it, but then it wound up being a continuous thing. We got to stop that.
Well, also your ORED study is about to be released, which relates back to this. And I spoke with Mr. Dunley last Thursday, so they're going to present it to Brian Alligood, the county manager, and ultimately it will be presented to you. So there is some thinking there just in terms of space, facility use, and then depending on decisions moving forward, what that type of cost savings will come back to you as a district in your planning for the future.
Right.
But really, honestly, the goal is to stop using your fund balance.
Sure.
Have you had any discussion with Mr. Alligood yet?
It keeps on with
about what he foresees as a projection, if he's projecting any increase or?
Oh, no, I purposefully asked him when I first met him not to have that conversation with me at the beginning, so this would be authentic to us. So therefore, we wouldn't put a budget together that was trying to match this number. Because I asked Mr. Alligood specifically, both for local expenditure but also capital, for us to be able to tell the totality of the story to them in its most authentic format. Where my understanding in the past is, we have cut down our list and then walked in and they don't know the whole story. So no, I didn't ask him for a number. He did talk to me about his process, but I did ask him for him not to tell me the number.
We got to quit caping to them.
I think also that the time is coming very close to us that it's going to be a lot more difficult for us to have, especially at the middle school and high school levels, classes that are taught, 3 periods a day that don't have more than 10 kids in them, unless it's an EC or special. We're gonna, that's been nice while it lasted, but it just can't continue.
Well, and there's just to add to that, and I won't go too deep. But there's an imbalance across the district. You might have one seventh grade middle school social studies class that has 33 kids in it, and then somewhere else you might have 12. Especially in your high school sciences, for example, you may have one class that has 8 in a course, but you go, somewhere else in the county, and you might have 22. So part of this thinking, and I agree with Mr. Williams, is you have to decide what you want to cut before presentation and what you're willing to cut after presentation, if at all. So I'll just need advisement on that. But can we look at, should we talk dates now or later?
Yes. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Not that you're going to have to study this a lot further.
Thanks, Willie, Matt. Good job.
Yes, thank you.
I like the total.
I know you didn't do it all by yourself, so
Well,
thank you.
whoever, thank you all. I like the total package.
I was thinking I was going to go home in a corpse today, in a hearse today when we showed you the number.
It's fine.
No.
It's just the truth.
No,
And
But it is very large.
where we need to see this.
Well, and the more you do this, the more it will become just plugging in the updated numbers. Once you have the template, it'll get easy.
Mr. Cheeseman has been very nice and patient with me because I've gone down there. I said, I'm this number's going up. He said, just relax, do what you have to do, and we'll.
It is what it is.
We'll present
Right.
it to them.
But this is also a new process for you and for others, meaning this is all of it in detail. And so maybe as a board, if we get back together in 2 weeks on April 30th before our May time, you can decide if you want to cut anything before you go to the county, or you decide that you want to go with the totality, see where it lays in, and then come back and cut it. I mean, that's really up to you as a board. But this is the truth based off of where we are now.
You mess with the truth.
Which brings us to the discussion that Mr. Cheeseman and I had the other day, as he's not familiar with, but we all are. We generally have to have 1 or 2 extra meetings that are budget-only meetings before we present. We have been guilty of bargaining with ourselves before we go in. But he had suggested April 30th. No, next week is spring break, so
That's a good.
That's fine.
is April 30th. Is
It's a
that work?
Tuesday.
It works because it's a 5 Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Not many people figure on 5 Tuesdays. but-
Right. Does that work? I know Ms. Booth said it did. Terry, Butch? Sounds great then.
Okay.
And we'll talk to Michael.
That meeting would only be budget with your approval, of
Right.
course, of the agenda, but it's only a budget meeting for the board, meaning we would not bring any other items. This would just be a conversation on budget.
Right, budget only. We did notice that the closed session for personnel was removed. If we had to, we could do that at the very beginning to get those that we didn't do tonight, if they needed to be done by
Sure,
we could do
absolutely.
those.
Is that a 5:30 meeting?
Another 5:30 meeting, does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to, Lisa, if you'll send that out as a reminder on April 30th at 5:30. Now, the question would be for everyone that's been doing their mileage and everything, do you want them to go ahead and turn everything in tonight as we know it, or turn it in at that meeting? Okay, so you can just make your decision and take care of that with Lisa. All right, any other questions about this budget package that you want in place before that meeting?
Mr. Cheeseman,
Yes, sir.
did I understand, I heard something from the state that their folks are encouraging us to go back and use part-time retired people as much as we possibly can?
So there's actually a bill on the table right now. Our legislators had roughly 1,430 some odd bills on the table. But one of those is a bill that would allow retired professional teachers to come back and be full-time teachers at an entry-level teacher salary with no penalty against their retirement.
Right.
So in short, that would help with some of our statewide teacher shortage, but that's not been completely decided yet. But that would be something that would interest us definitely.
But you're definitely looking at that.
Oh, absolutely. We're paying close attention to it.
Okay. Use them if you want to work. You can't watch with so much jeopardy.
True.
Okay. All right, now that if there are no more questions, we're going to, on the updates for the calendar for May. If everybody will look at their May calendars, it would be the 7th and the 21st. Is that okay with everybody?
That's fine.
7th and the 21st, 5:30? And when would
Somewhere in
we?
there is a presentation.
Right, and somewhere in there, we'll have the meeting with the county commissioners. We've usually done that at lunch, and we have lunch, and then we hash everything out.
But we can reach out to Mr. Allen tomorrow.
And we'll get that date once we firm that out with him. So everybody's good with the 7th and the 21st as our meeting? All right. When is Memorial Day? Is that on the 20th or the 27th? Not that that has any impact
The
on that.
27th is the last Monday of the month.
Okay.
So I believe it's the 27th.
That's what it
All
says.
right.
Yeah, it says it.
All right. Board member updates. Well, I always start with Ms. Booth. We'll start at the other end. Anything, Terry, Draper, Butch? Anything going on at school that we need to know about? Ms. P? Mr. Williams? Mr. Hodges?
I reckon I'll have to talk a minute.
Yes.
I gave everybody at their place a handout of our last month's NERSBA meeting. NERSBA will be Board of Directors, and it's also got the minutes in there also.
Okay.
But we will be meeting again tomorrow, and so just as soon as I get that information, I'll try to get it to you at our next board meeting.
Okay.
Keep you current as much as I can. Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Booth?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to, maybe you have seen the pictures on Facebook, those of you who watch Facebook. But I'm in an organization that's called the North Carolina OES, which stands for the Order of Eastern Star PHA. And this organization that I'm in, I've asked them to adopt the backpack program for the school system. And they agreed to it. And on last Friday, we went to Snowden, Ms. Pede. We were there, and we took food for backpacks. So we go around to the different schools every month and take packages to help out with the backpack. And Ms. Winley was very happy to receive those items because she thought that the items that we brought would be very helpful because, as children do, they get tired of what they're getting all the time, the same thing. So we make sure that we try to bring things that the children don't, or that they're not getting in the packs that they're getting. So I just want to let you know that we're doing that for the schools.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I want to give a quick shout out to Butch Oliver, who donated his time to the family night this past Friday night. John Cottontail, John Small, and Eastern Elementary came together and had one big family night. Teacher assistants from across the county at all of our schools had a booth where they gave away free popcorn. There were a lot of other things, but I understand, Mr. Oliver, they had a blast, and he is so gracious with his time and talents, and they really did appreciate it. So I understand that went well. I think Washington High School had a successful stunt night this past Saturday night. Mr. Cheeseman, his daughter experienced their first stunt night. There are a lot of, it was very entertaining, very entertaining. There'll be DVDs available, but it was very entertaining. But there are a lot of events going on, not just at the communities that you represent as a board member, but across Beaufort County schools. There are athletic events. There are award nights that will be coming up very shortly. There are spring dances and spring formals, and there are all kinds of different project presentations. And I just ask the board member and the community, if you're asked to attend, if nothing else, just to attend to see what's going on, I encourage you to do that. They really do like to show their time and their talents, what they're doing in our schools. There was another Coffee with Cougars at Northeast Elementary, and Mr. Allen, Mr. Williams, and myself attended that, and a county commissioner attended that as well. So there are great things going on in Beaufort County schools. I thank Ms. Myers and Ms. Lilley for keeping everybody going from the curriculum side. And Mr. Carolyn, I want to thank you and your team for what you've pulled together. And I want to thank everybody else for attending tonight. And that leaves us with Mr. Cheeseman, superintendent updates.
Real quick, I just want to say thank you to Senator Smith and Representative Kidwell, who've represented Beaufort County Schools and Beaufort County, for that matter, very well in this year's legislation. So we look forward to seeing how it all shakes out at the end. But also, just again, want to revisit Damon Walcott, who was the Regional Teacher of the Year last Friday at the State Teacher of the Year program. Although he was not chosen as the State Teacher of the Year, again, he's one of 8 teachers in the entire state to have that designation as a Regional Teacher of the Year. So if you see Mr. Walcott over at Washington High School, please give him a great shout out, as he did remarkably well. So thank you, and that's kind of where we're going.
They missed a great opportunity to make him Teacher of the Year. He's wonderful. He's really...
Carolyn,
Yes.
I do have one thing. I want
Please
to
do.
commend and thank Mr. Cheeseman for coming in as the impromptu MC of
Stepping out.
and did a great job. And,
You did.
I think that was thrown on him at the last minute, but you did do a good job.
You would never know it. It was
like I said, he did a great job.
There was a lot of board member attendance, and I appreciate everybody that went. It was a great stepping out, and we're getting you used to Beaufort County.
Yes, ma'am. I'm excited about it.
And I think, if I haven't done that, I think all the teachers and the teacher assistants and the parents and Ashley Padgett that put stepping out together. It was a wonderful evening. It really was.
I think we should all give him a big yeehaw.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, the kids did great. That leaves us. Ms. P, do you have something to add?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Everybody have a great evening.